Hey there you guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the digestive system, and we're going to talk about what the heck is going on. So this is actually the first video in my brand new Ask the Pharmacist series, which is a new series that I have started here on my channel. In case you guys are new here, hello and welcome. I'm happy that you are here. My name is Marissa and I am a pharmacist and integrative nutrition health coach. And here on my channel, I share about healthy recipes and how to improve your health and wellness from a holistic point of view. So basically, how do we live life each day to live a healthy, happy life, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I am so excited for this series. I think that it's going to be so much fun. Basically, what I am doing is just answering questions that I would get all the time working at the pharmacy. I'm going to be answering your guys' questions as well. So make sure that you are dropping those down in the comment section below. I'm definitely looking for your feedback. And I am prioritizing your questions to the top of the list. And the first one that was requested was basically just to talk about what is digestion, what's happening in the body under normal conditions, and where does the gut microbiome come into play? And so that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Digestion is also a really great place to start for this series because so many things stem from it. And as Hippocrates very famously is credited with saying, all disease originates in the gut. And so it is super important for us to understand what's happening in the gut. So we are going to be talking about the anatomy and physiology of our digestive system, and there is going to be science discussed within this video, but it's going to be more from like an overview point of view. We're not going to get super deep. If there's something specifically that really piques your interest and you want me to go deeper in on that topic, just let me know in the comment section. But I really wanted this video to just be this really great general overview because it's really easy to get lost in like small details. And I want us to have just like this nice big picture that we can kind of just like see, and it's going to be very helpful because either we can build upon it or go deeper in it. And so, yeah, so this video is going to be just like a nice general overview of the digestive system. Okay, so let's start with the just overall purpose of our digestive system. Our system, so basically in science or in the human body, and we're looking at, anatomy and physiology here, it goes from an organ system. So in this case, today is the digestive system, and then that goes into tissues, and then that goes into cells. And so and a bunch of cells make up a tissue, and a bunch of tissues make up the organ, and a bunch of organs make up a organ system. So that's basically just the hierarchy of how things are classified in science and in medicine in regards to the human body. And so the purpose of the digestive system that contains all of these different organs and tissues and cells is basically this. We need to absorb nutrients so we can fuel our cells so that they can do what it is that they do. And we need to get rid of stuff that we no longer need, so our waste products. So that, in a nutshell, is the purpose of the digestive system. We need to get things into the cell, and we need to get things away from the cell. And basically everything we're going to talk about today is going to help us do those two things. So there are two different types of nutrients. We got macronutrients and we have micronutrients. Macronutrients are our carbohydrates, our fats, and our proteins. And those are what we are going to specifically kind of like hone in on for the purpose of today's video. Micronutrients are super important and everything, but in terms of digestion, we really want to hone in on those three nutrients there within those macronutrients. So the reason is that when we eat carbs, fats, and proteins, we can't just absorb them as they are. Some of them are in their like simplest form, but the majority of them need to be broken down and digested in order for our body to absorb those nutrients. We cannot absorb a giant like food particle. That's just not how our body is designed. We need to digest that and break it down into its simplest form in order to absorb it into the body so that it can nourish our body and our cells. And so that's where digestion comes into place, because it's literally breaking things down so that we can absorb it. So there are two different ways that the body actually digests the foods that we eat. So there's mechanical digestion and there is chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion is going to be like chewing, our tongue kind of mixing food around with saliva, the stomach churning, muscles are contracting and just pushing things along through the digestive tract. And then we have chemical digestion, and that's going to be our stomach acid and digestive enzymes that are created from various organs at various places within the digestive system, which we will discuss in just a moment. And that's going to help us chemically break down our food particles. And something really important to keep in mind is that while digestion is happening, we have a lot of other things going on within the body. We have nervous system interaction. We have the immune system doing its thing because as we're taking things in, anything coming in from the outside to the inside of the body needs to protect itself. So there's a lot of immune system activity happening as well, and there's a lot of hormones going on as well. All of these topics I think would be better to be discussed in a future video, just because again, I don't want to get like sidetracked and lost in details because it's super easy to do that. We just want like a general overview of like what digestion is, but I just want you guys to know that those other things are also happening as well. Now, the organs that are involved within the digestive system include the mouth, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, until everything is ultimately excreted from the body. And then we also have what are called accessory digestive organs. So they're not within like the actual digestive tract or the GI tract, but they have main roles in the digestion process and definitely things that we need to talk about as well. And those are going to include the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. Okay, so now let's actually walk through digestion. Just imagine you are sitting down to dinner and you have something on your plate that includes all three of the macronutrients. So there are carbs, fats, and proteins. So you could imagine that you have some like apple slices and peanut butter. You can imagine a big juicy cheeseburger with a bun on it, whatever you would like to imagine there. But we're about to eat this and we're gonna like figure out how digestion of those food products actually occurs. So we take a bite of our food and now it's in our mouth, and that is where digestion begins. So we have our teeth that are mechanically starting to like digest things down, break things down, okay? And then we also have our salivary glands that are producing saliva. And then we got saliva going on in there. Our tongue is helping kind of push the food around with the saliva. And within the saliva, there is a couple key things in there that we need to mention. One, we have a digestive enzyme. So this is where chemical digestion is happening. It's called salivary amylase, and it's a digestive enzyme that helps with carbohydrate digestion. Okay, so this is where carb digestion starts. It's within our mouth because of salivary amylase. And then along with that, we have another enzyme called lingual lipase, which is a digestive enzyme for fats, to help break down fats. However, due to the fact that the environment is not acidic enough, that enzyme does not actually become activated until it hits the stomach. So our saliva is it's more acidic, but it's not super acidic. The stomach is going to be more acidic. And so because of that, the lipase doesn't really have much activity at this point, but it is created at this point, and it goes down with the food and the saliva and everything into the stomach, and that's where it really starts to do its thing. But I just wanted to mention that it is created here at this step. And then additionally, we have a protein called mucin, and this protein just helps to create mucus. It helps to lubricate the food. It's going to help us with swallowing and everything. So it's just going to help with lubrication. We also have a salivary antioxidant present within the saliva, and it's called uric acid. And then we also have some immune system activity happening here as well. There is an enzyme called lysosome and an immunoglobulin protein. So immunoglobulin A is also present within the saliva. So now the food in our mouth has been broken down thanks to our teeth. Some carb digestion has already started to take place thanks to the salivary amylase, and the tongue has kind of pushed the food around with the saliva and it's lubricated. So now we're about to swallow, and the food forms what's called a bolus, and it passes the pharynx and it goes down into the esophagus. The esophagus is like this big muscular tube, and its entire role is just to kind of just keep pushing the food down into the stomach. And at the base of the esophagus, there is like a valve, and it's called the lower esophageal sphincter, or the LES. And what happens is that when food is coming down from the mouth through the esophagus, it opens and it allows the food to enter in the stomach. And then it also closes, which is super important because it prevents any of the stomach contents from refluxing back into the esophagus. So now the food is within the stomach, and the stomach functions like a temporary storage tank, and there's a lot that happens here. And so I want to just take a quick moment to say that there are multiple layers within the lining of the stomach that are super, super important, and it's going to help us figure out where everything is really taking place. So there are 5 different layers within the stomach lining here. And let's just imagine that here's the stomach, here's the outermost layer, and here's the innermost layer. So the innermost layer is called the mucosa. We're actually going to spend the majority of our discussion focused in on this area because there's a lot of action that takes place here. And then, so we have the mucosa, then there's the submucosa, which is like a supportive role, holds a supportive role for the mucosa. So like blood vessels and stuff like that. And then we have what's called the muscularis, and this is where the muscles are located. This is super important because a lot of mechanical digestion occurs within the stomach. There's a lot of muscle contraction happening to help churn the food and again, that mechanical digestion. Then we have what's called the subserosa, and this is a tissue that just helps to support the serosa, which is the outermost layer, which just basically kind of helps to confine the stomach. Okay, so now let's focus in on the mucosa, which again is that innermost layer of the stomach lining. And so within the mucosa, we have these things called gastric pits. And deep within the pit, we have gastric glands. And there are 3 different cells to point out here. The first one is called the parietal cell, and this is responsible for secreting the hydrochloric acid, or HCl, which is responsible for a lot of chemical digestion. It creates a very acidic environment. Hydrochloric acid is one of our 6 strong acids, so it's very highly acidic environment there. If you remember back to chemistry, the pH scale, so we have it's 0 to 14, and 7 is neutral. And so anything below 7 is going to be more acidic, and anything above 7 is going to be more basic. So within the stomach, we have a pH of 1.5 to 2. It's very, very, very acidic, and that is all due to the hydrochloric acid that is secreted by these parietal cells. Additionally, they also secrete something called the intrinsic factor, and this is really, really important for vitamin B12 absorption. The second group of cells are called the chief cells, and these are responsible for secreting something called pepsinogen, and this is actually an inactive form, and once it gets secreted, the hydrochloric acid that's present is going to help activate it to something called pepsin, which is a protein digesting enzyme. So we have our protein digestion starting to happen here chemically. Okay, and we also are secreting lipases, which are enzymes to help with fat digestion. So we have fat and protein digestion starting to take place now within the stomach thanks to these 2 enzymes. And the third group of cells are called the enteroendocrine cells, and these are super important for secreting hormones that influence digestive organs. We're going to cover these more in detail in a separate video or in a future video, but just to mention a few that are secreted here. So we have histamine, there is serotonin and cholecystokinin, and there's also somatostatin, gastrin, and glucagon-like peptides 1 and 2. So as I mentioned before, the hydrochloric acid is one of our 6 strong acids, and it really creates a very acidic environment. It's actually a very harsh environment, and this is by design. We need to kill off bacteria that may be present from outside the body that is coming inside the body. So that's where that's a big part of our immune system right there. It's also that acidic environment is also helpful to activate certain enzymes, so that lingual lipase that was produced within the saliva that wasn't really active, that now gets activated within the stomach. So that's going to help with fat digestion. We also have the activation of pepsinogen to pepsin. So that's our protein digesting enzyme. So this acidic environment is very necessary for those certain things to occur. And the acidic environment in and of itself is going to help with denaturing proteins, and this is going to help with chemical digestion. Now, the harsh environment that is created by the hydrochloric acid and as well as with the pepsin poses a threat to our stomach in and of itself. So it's necessary for digestion and for our immune system, but it's not really all that fabulous for our stomach. And so because of that, our body has natural systems in place to help protect itself, and that is with something called the mucosal barrier. So this mucosal barrier is so incredibly crucial. Without this, the stomach lining would be attacked by the hydrochloric acid and the pepsin, and it could theoretically digest itself. And that's why the mucosal barrier is so incredibly important. And so basically what happens is that we have this thick mucus coating that is on the barrier of the mucosa, okay, the mucosal barrier, and it's a bicarbonate-rich mucus, meaning it's more alkaline, more basic, and it helps to neutralize that stomach acid, and it helps to protect the lining, the beautiful lining of our stomach. Additionally, the cells of our mucosa are bound together by what we call tight junctions, and this is important because nothing is going to be able to seep through and damage any underlying tissues. And thirdly, and this is really cool, is that any damaged mucosal cell is actually going to be shed and quickly replaced thanks to our adult stem cells or undifferentiated stem cells. Those are not the controversial stem cells. These are just adult stem cells that are naturally present within those gastric pits of the mucosa. And those are going to be helping to replace the entire lining of the mucosa. And we basically get a new lining of the mucosa every 3 to 6 days. Now, the food at this point has gone through a lot, okay? It's gone through a lot of chemical digestion. It's gone through a lot of mechanical digestion. And at this point, we now refer to it as chyme, okay? CHYME. I'll put it on the screen. But it's referred to as chyme. And now it's done in the stomach, and now it's ready to move on. So now it goes through another sphincter. So at the base of the stomach into the small intestine, there's another valve, and that's called the pyloric sphincter. And now this chyme is now going to travel into the small intestine. The small intestine consists of 3 regions. The number one, or the first one, is by far the most important for today's discussion. That's called the duodenum. Then it goes into the jejunum and then the ileum. But we're going to focus in on the duodenum today. The purpose of the duodenum of the small intestine here is just to help finish any type of digestion that needs to take place, because we do have some more digestive enzymes that happen here. And then we need absorption of the nutrients of the food that we have worked so hard at this point to start digesting. Now, the wall has 3 structural modifications that are really key to the function of the small intestine, which again is to finish up any digestion that needs to take place, as well as to absorb any nutrients that are present within the food products that we have digested up until this point. So we have the circular folds, we have the villi, and we have the microvilli. And again, these are all present to help increase surface area to maximize our efforts for nutrient absorption. So the circular folds are these deep permanent folds within the mucosa and submucosa, and their job is to really just force the chyme to kind of spiral through the internal part of the small intestine, which we call the lumen. And it forces it to kind of spiral through. And what this does is that it does 2 things. It slows down the movement of the food products, and it also helps give us some time for nutrient absorption. The villi are these finger-like projections of the mucosa. So just imagine this is the mucosa. We have our villi here, and then on the top of the villi, we have something called the microvilli, and this kind of gives it the villi a fuzzy appearance, and they call this the brush border. The cell membranes of the microvilli bear enzymes, and we refer to those as the brush border enzymes. And this is where we get further chemical digestion of our food products thanks to these digestive enzymes. There is also a group of cells called the goblet cells that are located within the mucosa of the villi, and these cells are responsible for creating a mucus that is more alkaline or more basic, and it's going to help neutralize the chyme that came from the stomach, is now in the small intestine, and neutralize that so it's not quite so acidic. Remember that the stomach had the mucosal barrier to help protect itself from the acidic environment created by the hydrochloric acid, but the stomach does not have that. So we need to help neutralize the acidity of the chyme so that the stomach acid doesn't damage the lining of the small intestine. And then in between the villi, so remember, here's our mucosa, here are the villi, which are those finger-like projections, and in between the villi, we have these pits that lead to tubular glands called intestinal crypts. And the intestinal crypts are responsible for a couple different things. For one thing, they are secreting intestinal fluid, which is a carrier fluid to help with absorption of nutrients from the chyme. And then we have a couple of cells that are present here as well. So we have those enteroendocrine cells again, and those are responsible for secreting hormones that are influencing digestion. And then we also have a couple of cells like T cells and Paneth cells that are really important for immune system function. And even more immune system function, the mucosa contain what's called Breyer's patches, and these are lymphoid nodules, really important for our immune system. And then we also have B lymphocytes that are secreting IgA, so that immunoglobulin A, which is really helpful to protect the body from intestinal pathogens. So that is the small intestine pretty much in a nutshell. And now the food then goes from the small intestine into the large intestine. But before we continue on with that progression, I just wanted to mention those accessory organs to digestion. Again, that's the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas, because their function kind of comes into play at this point. So the liver is responsible for making something called bile. Bile is very, very important. It functions as a fat emulsifier that is going to help with the digestion of fats into tiny particles that make them much more readily digestible. The bile is exported from the liver into the duodenum, which is that beginning portion of the small intestine. Any bile that is not needed right away is stored within the gallbladder, so that's the purpose of the gallbladder right there. And your pancreas is working to produce a lot of digestive enzymes that again are going to help with the chemical digestion of the foods that we have consumed, of that chyme, okay? And the pancreatic juice that contains these digestive enzymes is a very, it's a more basic environment. So this is gonna help again to neutralize the acidic chyme that's coming from the stomach. Okay, so now let's get back to the GI tract. We went from the small intestine now to the large intestine, which is really the final organ before anything that is no longer needed gets excreted from the body. Okay, so at this point, digestion is done. There really is not going to be any more digestion that needs to take place because that should have already finished within the small intestine. Your large intestine really functions as like a storage area where we are going to do some absorption of water and electrolytes, so like sodium, potassium, chloride ions. Okay, just for an example, there are going to be a lot of absorption there. And another key thing to point out is that our bacterial flora colonize our colon. And this is extremely important, and this is where the discussion of the gut microbiome comes into place. So when we hear of bacteria colonizing our gut, we may not think that that's such a great thing, but there are bacteria that live within a symbiotic relationship with us, meaning that they kind of live there, they do their thing, we kind of just give them a home, and we kind of benefit from each other. And then there are bacteria that are more pathogenic, they cause more disease, they cause issues and stuff. So there are good bacteria and bad bacteria, but it is the topic of the gut microbiome has become very, very popular due to research that has been coming out over the last few years. And the gut microbiome and having a healthy, diverse gut microbiome is extremely, extremely important for our overall health and well-being. These bacteria have a lot of different functions. I actually made a whole video discussing probiotics and stuff, so you guys can actually go ahead and check that out, but I will mention a couple of their functions. But if you want more of a deep, intense discussion on them and like supplementation and everything. I actually made a whole other video about that, and I will link that on the screen for you guys. But just to reiterate a little bit, the good bacteria help us with nutrient metabolism. They help us with creating certain vitamins like vitamin K, certain B vitamins. They help us with energy metabolism. They also help with the activation of polyphenols that are found within the diet. These are antioxidants like flavonoids. They're actually inactive until the bacteria help to activate them. So that's really, really important. They also have major roles within our immune system, and they help us to maintain the integrity of the gut barrier as well as the structure of our GI tract. All right, you guys, so that is your digestive system in a nutshell. I hope that you enjoyed today's video and learned something new and got like a good general overview of how digestion works, the organs that are involved, and just truly how important it is to really support our gut health and our digestion on a daily basis. If you learned something new today, then please let me know what it is down below in the comment section. I can't wait to read your responses. And if you guys have any like questions that you would like me to answer for this series, then be sure to comment those down below as well. I am adding them to the list, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. If you are looking to improve your health and you want to understand your body more and you just want to find some simple and realistic ways for you to improve your health on a daily basis, then be sure to click that subscribe button. I post videos every single week on those topics. If you guys would like to take a deeper look at the gut microbiome and learn more about probiotics and prebiotics and why they are so incredibly crucial for our health and well-being, then be sure to click the video that's about to appear on the screen, and I will see you over there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.